Hey guys, welcome back to the DAHKTUBE. And before we get started, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, new videos are posted every week. So today we'll be doing reducible to a quadratic. So what this means is sometimes we have equations with powers greater than 2. Because we know that a quadratic is x squared plus something. But we can have x to the 5, x to the 4, x to the 3, etc., etc. So what we normally do is we try and reduce it to a quadratic, which is easier to solve. So for example, let's say we have x. So let's say we have this question here, which the highest power here is a 4. So that means it is no longer a quadratic. So what we have to do first is we have to say, let a, or it can be any letter or any variable, be equal to x squared. So that means this part here is x squared squared minus 7x squared plus 12 equals 0. So what this is saying is we have a squared minus 7a plus 12 is equal to 0. So this is now in quadratic form. So we can use either the AC method or the standard formula. So we would know that A is 1, B is minus 7, and C is 12. So now we have, so we now have to figure out what two numbers, when we multiply A and C, what two factors, when we add them together, we can get the middle term here. So 1 times 12, that's 12. So what two numbers can we add to give us minus 7? That would be minus 3 and minus 4. So we have a squared minus 4a minus 3a plus 12 is equal to 0. So now we group. So we have a minus 4 minus 3, a minus 4. Remember, you always want to ensure that your brackets are the same thing. If they're not the same thing, you're doing something wrong. So now we have a minus 3 in one bracket and a minus 4 in another bracket. Equate that to 0. So now we have a is equal to 3 or a is equal to 4. But remember, we had said let a be equal to x squared. So we started off with x, so we have to end with x. X squared is equal to 3 and x squared is equal to 4. So now we want x by itself, so we're finding the square root of both sides. And that would be a final answer. So let's try another one. Let's say this time we have an odd number as a power. So x to the 5 minus 2x cubed plus x is equal to 0. So the first thing you'd want to do is you want to factor out an x out of this so that you can get an even power. So what that means is we'd have x, but if you factor out x from this, that means you'd have to factor out x from everything else. So now you'd have x to the 4 minus 2x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. So now that you have two things being multiplied and equated to 0, that means this part by itself is equal to 0. So you have x is equal to 0. And then you have this part by itself is also equal to 0. So now we have to work this in a reducible form. So again, we can say let a be equal to x squared. So we have a squared minus 2a plus 1 equals 0. So again, we know that a is equal to 1, b is equal to minus 2, and c is equal to positive 1. So it's 1 times 1, that gives us 1. So that means, what can we do to get minus 2 here? So we could say -1 plus -1. So we have a squared minus a plus 1 is equal to 0. So we're grouping a minus 1, minus 1, a minus 1 equals 0. So here we have a minus 1 and a minus 1 equal to 0. So that means we now have, we just have a minus 1 is equal to 0. So that means a is equal to +1. But remember, we had used a for x squared. So that means x squared is equal to 1. That means x itself is equal to ±1. And that would be a final answer. So thank you guys for staying tuned, and don't forget to comment in the section topics you want me to cover. See you guys next time on the DAHKTUBE.